Hello everyone, I'll go over a game from round 8 of the US Championship played yesterday, and I have to say it's a game I wasn't really excited to watch, but I think it's significant because of what's happening in chess at the moment, because of mostly Fabiano Caruana. And what he has been doing with the Petrov or the Russian defense, the Russian game, is astonishing, and he actually can't lose really using that, and nobody is able to attack him the way White should be attacking. And it seems that he managed to revive the Petrov defense or the Russian, and because of him it's now becoming more and more popular, and it is becoming the new Berlin defense or the new Marshall attack, which is a great drawing weapon for Black, and if White is not careful, perhaps even a great weapon to defeat White. And he used it in, I believe, at least 70% of his games against pawn to e4 in 2018. He used it with great success in the candidates, and at the Grenke Chess Classic, and now he's been using it at the US Championship. And I have to say, he made as somebody discussed during live commentary yesterday, I think it was Yasser Seyravan who said, I mean, he was asked whether the Petrov defense is now killing pawn to e4, and he just replied, well, there's already a lot of things killing pawn to e4, like the Berlin or the Marshall, so he would just add that to the repertoire for Black against pawn to e4, which could easily secure a draw on top level, and Caruana has been doing that pretty well. And in round 8 he played Wesley So, who was half a point behind in second place after 7 rounds. Caruana was sharing first with Sam Shankland, and Sam Shankland had a great game yesterday. He was playing Hikaru Nakamura, who had 6 draws and 1 loss so far at the US Championship, so a very poor performance. And Sam Shankland actually had him on his knees, and Nakamura had 5 minutes on the clock and an almost completely losing position, but then he got in his calculation mode, took his jacket off, and went on to draw easily. I mean, he is supposed to be far superior to Sam Shankland, and he managed to prove it. Unfortunately, he hasn't been playing that well throughout the tournament. But anyway, in this game, Wesley So had the white pieces. He opened with pawn to e4, and after e5, knight f3, knight to f6, they entered the Petrov. And after knight to e5, d6, knight to f3, knight takes c4, Wesley So goes for the Millennium attack with bishop to d3. And this setup has common ideas of playing c3, bishop to c2, and then pawn to d4, striking in the center and getting a lot of central control. And this is the main setup for White. And of course, in this position there are 2 possible moves. The most common one is knight to f6, after which h3 is played, bishop to e7, castles, c3, and as I said, White is going to play bishop to c2, d4. And that's the best move, by far the best move. And Caruana went for d5 in this position. And this is what I think is so significant about his approach to the Petrov. What you will see in the next 8 to 10 moves is that he is following the computer suggestions almost completely accurately, and he plays almost the best moves, unless he wants to get his opponent out of his preparation and deviate with a move such as d5 here. But of course Wesley was prepared for that. But there will be more moves like this coming up, and I think he knows the Petrov so well that he is able to play a move which is not as precise as, I would say, the 2 best options voluntarily, in order to get his opponent out of his preparation and then to exploit the position later on, which he knows how to do. And he's actually able to play moves which are not the best in order to provoke weaknesses from his opponents, who are more likely to make a bad move in a position they don't know than in a position in which they know they are better. So this is approach I think Caruana is using, and he is using the Petrov as his main weapon now, and players are only lucky not to lose most of these positions if they go for a win, and with White you of course want to go for a win. After d5, Wesley castles. This is a good move. Bishop to e7, rook to e1, knight to d6, and now c3 is played by Wesley, and this is the weakness I was talking about. Wesley of course knows the position, and he knows the main ideas in the position. However, after the subtle difference of Black playing d5 first, and often it could be played even after knight to f6, the plan with c3 is not the best plan in the position, and Caruana knows this because he was prepared for Wesley's mistake, and then he exploited it. He built up he managed to equalize the position using the moves he had prepared before. The best move in this position is knight to c3, and not c3, bishop c2, pawn to d4, which Caruana knew, and he reacted with c6. We have queen to e2, knight to d7, b4 would have been the best option in this line if Wesley had played knight to c3, and after knight f8, b5, you can see that Wesley has a lot of aggressive chances, and his chances are much better than Caruana's, and he actually stands better. So after knight to d6, this was the move, and once again, I'm 99.9% sure that Caruana had prepared this, and that he hoped that Wesley would make a mistake. So Wesley should have played knight c3 and this plan with pushing b4 and b5. Instead of that, he played the most common move in the position, which is a natural thing to do. You know a position, you prepared for the position, and you know what your plan is, so you will hardly deviate from that if you know that it has to be okay for white. This is okay, of course. White isn't worse or anything, but he's equal, and he doesn't have an advantage, and that's what Caruana is going for. He voluntarily plays a less than ideal move to provoke c3 in this exact position. After c3, castling, bishop to c2, c6, d4, and now you can see that white achieved his main position out of the opening, but the problem is that he doesn't have anything. There's nothing in this position. The position is so symmetrical that neither side can make any progress, and of course Caruana was in first place before this round, so a draw with the black pieces would be okay for him, and he will most probably remain in first place as he did, because Sam Shankland also drew, and he will have great chances to win the US Championship. So this position is what Caruana wanted, and if Wesley makes a mistake, he is going to exploit it and win. Here, bishop to f5 was played by Fabiano Caruana, bishop f4, bishop c2, queen c2, knight to a6, knight b to d2, knight to c7, rerouting the knight to the e6 square, rook to e2, preparing to double, rook e8, rook a e1, and once again, white doesn't have anything in this position, unfortunately for Wesley, and I'm sure, okay, he was only half a point behind, so he must have wanted to win, and I'm sorry about his game. His previous game, which he also drew, because I thought he had great winning chances, but in this game Caruana was just controlling the situation and not giving white any play, any initiative in the position. Bishop to f8 is played by Fabiano, knight to e5, and now queen to f6, and after bishop to g3, saving the bishop, queen to f5 was played, and Caruana offers a trade of queens, and in this position it was probably hard to see that white is better if he doesn't trade queens, but Wesley just went for the simplest option with taking on f5. What he could have tried is queen to b3, attacking the pawn. I mean, it can't be taken because you lose b2, but still you are threatening something and you are declining a queen trade. So after rook e7, knight to f1, let's say rook a to e8, and you are not losing a piece. You can play h3 in this position and not fear f6, because you have a Zwischenzug after f6, knight to e3, gaining a tempo on the queen, and you are okay. After queen to c8, knight to d3, white is better slightly, but he didn't trade queens, and there's a lot of chances. And in this position, after knight to f1, instead of knight to e1, if white had taken, the knight is defending. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was looking at some more positions when the pawn would be falling after knight to e4, so I made a mistake here. So this position with queen to b3 would have been better for Wesley, at least practically speaking, giving him more winning chances. But he took on f5, and after knight f5, knight to d3, knight takes g3, h takes g3, Caruana got rid of the bishop, and arguably I think that the knights are more useful in this position than the bishop on f8, even though most of black's pawns are on light squares, and the bishop has a lot of scope for now. I think the knights are better because they can easily find outposts and remaneuver throughout the entire board, and this is a close position still, so the knights are practically better in close positions. And now this is just drawing, there's nothing else, I can't show you anything else. The only chance I think Wesley had was to play queen to b3 and create some complications if he wanted to win. Now f6, g4, king f7, knight to f3, rook takes e2, rook takes, knight to e6. There's nothing really much going on in the position, and all both sides have to do is make sure they don't blunder a piece or a pawn, and if that doesn't happen, it's just a drawn position. You can see now that the pawn structures are getting locked down on both sides of the board. Now Caruana is going to put a bit of pressure on the c3 pawn and on the g3 pawn, but there's no really way to make any progress here. And after this trade, they agree to draw after a couple of moves in this position. This is of course just a complete draw. There's nothing to do here. They agree to a draw, and I think somebody has to do something about Caruana's Petrov, and of course I can't even imagine how the strong 2700 players are preparing for the game, but I think Wesley should have expected the Petrov and perhaps found something that's unsound, perhaps even giving up his entire opening advantage, perhaps even going 0.5 advantage for black, just to surprise Fabiano and to see if there is anything that he doesn't know in the Petrov. Because if you are going to bleed points with the white pieces every time you play against Fabiano Caruana, and soon every time you play pawn to e4 and face the Petrov, then something will have to be done, and black players with black need to find with white, need to find some more aggressive lines against the Russian game. I hope it happens soon. Okay, everybody, thanks very much for watching. I hope you didn't find this video boring, and even though the game was a bore, I hope you got something from this Petrov, and at least that you can prepare for it if you play pawn to e4. Or if you are looking for a weapon against pawn to e4, that you might apply Caruana's boring drawing methods. And stay tuned for more chess. Thanks very much. Bye.